New colors are always a boost to my creativity, so come with me as we explore the 3 new color families in the fresh dye inks from Altenew. Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here for Altenew. Thanks for joining me today. Have you heard the latest from Altenew? There are 3 brand new color families in the fresh dye ink line that you are absolutely going to love. There is Sage Garden, which you're looking at here at the top. Then there is the earth tone lines, which is here in the middle, some really beautiful neutrals for you. And finally, Moonlit Twilight, which is a family of really cool, beautiful, icy purples. Now, whenever I pick up new fresh dye inks, I like to go ahead and grab the labels and label them so that I can see all the colors as they sit on my shelf. Now, each set of labels comes with these longer labels, which are perfect for labeling your round fresh dye inks. There's also some labels for some ink cubes as well as blending brushes included in this label set. So I'm going to take the long strip at the top and I'm going to start kind of at this raised area on my fresh dye ink. And I'm just going to slowly wrap this around and press it down as I go, making sure I stay on that bottom edge of my fresh dye ink round ink pad there and press that into place. Now, once I add these to all of my inks in the color family, I can then stack them on the shelf and I can see which color I'm reaching for. I'm going to give you a look at each of these color families, starting with Sage Garden, which includes Silver Sprout, Sage Stone, Olive Grove, and Mossy Granite. These are some really beautiful kind of gray greens. Next up are the earth tones, which include Shattered Shell, Warm Linen, Ginger Root, and Umber Shadow. I really love that Shattered Shell. It is like the perfect ivory color. Finally, we have Moonlit Twilight, which includes Celestial Mist, Glacier Iris, Dreamy Periwinkle, and Twilight Sky. So you can see those really cool purples there. Now, once these dried back a little bit, you'll notice that the color changes. Keep in mind that this is a direct-to-paper technique, so it's a really quick way to swatch your inks, but when you stamp, you may get a little bit lighter transfer of color, so keep that in mind. Now for my cards today, I'm only using these brand new fresh dye inks, and I'm going to start out with the Fine Joy layering stencils. You can see I've placed my cardstock onto my 9x12 grip mat here, and then I have stencil number 1. I've marked my stencil's corners with some satin masking tape so that I can easily place the next stencil in the series. By using these corner markings along with the etched areas on the stencils, it makes it really quick to line up subsequent stencils. So I've done that here today. Now I'm starting out with a mini ink blending brush and the Sage Stone ink. I think this color is so beautiful. This is kind of the second one up. All of Altenew's inks come in a 4 color family set, which go from light to medium, medium dark, and then the darkest ink. So on each of these, I'm using more than one color. I started with that Sage Stone and a mini ink blending brush. Now I'm moving to a micro blending brush and the Olive Grove. And this one might be my absolute favorite of all of these new greens. I think it is absolutely beautiful, and it's just a perfect toned green. Now on this stencil, there are some florals included, so I am going to ink again using a mini ink blending brush, and I'm starting out with Dreamy Periwinkle. Now I'm only going to use a single color on these florals on stencil number 1 because these florals have a layer that goes over them, which gives them a little bit of detail and dimension, and I'll do that in a darker color. Now, because I'm restricting myself to these 3 color families of inks, I have to kind of think outside the box for a couple of things. I mean, not too far outside of the box because this has a nice range of colors with the purples and the greens and those earth tones, but I may have to kind of force myself to use a color for, say, the vines or something that I might not normally think of. Now you can see I've removed stencil number 1 and now I'm moving to stencil number 2. I've used Twilight Sky for that with a heavy hand, and that gives the details on my florals. Now I'm moving to stencil number 3, and here is where I'm kind of thinking I may have normally reached for a green in this kind of situation, but instead I'm starting out with ginger root, and I'm going to go over some of the areas with the umber shadow, just giving a little depth and darkness to certain areas. I'm not going over the entire stenciling, I'm just kind of doing some spot stenciling, and I'm using that dark umber shadow for the centers of the florals. Now you'll notice that before I remove my stencils, I like to wipe them down with a dry cloth. That just keeps from transferring ink to my fingers and then me getting ink on a part of my project that I did not intend to. It's happened a few times. I'm moved on to stencil number 4 in this Fine Joy stencil set, and I'm starting out with Shattered Shell. Now I love this. This is a great basic kind of creamy neutral. I'm going over the entire sentiment using that Shattered Shell, and then again I'm coming in with Warm Linen and I'm just blending over kind of spotlight areas. I'm not finding particular places. I am kind of doing like the tails and the leading parts of the letters, but I didn't concentrate too much on where I was putting it. Just did a little blending here and there with that darker color. Now I removed that final stencil and I'm blending all around the edge to kind of soften it with the Shattered Shell. It really is a great neutral that's kind of just bringing this tone of that white cardstock back just a bit. Now, after I'm done with all of my blending, I'm going to remove it from my grip mat. I trimmed it down about 1/8 of an inch on each side, and now I'm placing it into my Stamp Wheel 2.0. I want to add a little texture over this entire surface, and so I grabbed the Rustic Linen Stamp Set. This is a beautiful, just kind of textural background stamp. And once I have it positioned over my panel in my Stamp Wheel 2.0, I'm going to pick it up with the flip plate, and then I'm going to flip it over and ink up that stamp with Shattered Shell. Now this Shattered Shell is a very light color ink, but it's going to give that linen-y texture over all of the blending that I've already done, and I think it's a nice finishing touch for this stenciled panel. Now, I reached for the Bubbly Bumblebee die set. I actually had one on my desk that was already put together from the Heartfelt Moments class that I taught. And so I went ahead and adhered that to the upper left-hand corner using some foam adhesive. And then I grabbed the Sage Garden enamel dots and sprinkled some of those on my card front. I finished this card off by adding it to a white A2 size card base using some Instant Dimension foam tape, and that completes card number 1, featuring these fabulous new color families in the Fresh Dye ink line. For card number 2, I decided to use the Hearts and Paislies stencil and coordinating 3D embossing folder. And so I'm going to do some more stenciling, again, marking the corner of my stencil with some satin masking tape on my grid mat here. And then I'm using a purple large ink blending brush. Now this had some other purples on it before I started. And so I made sure that I wiped off that kind of warmer colored purple onto a clean dry cloth before I went into this Celestial Mist ink, because it's really nice and light and I want it to transfer that way. Now you're going to notice I'm blending darker in some areas than others, and I'm doing that on purpose just to give my ink blending a little dimension. To bring more of that dimension to my ink blending, I'm going to switch to a mini ink blending brush and the Glacier Iris ink and add some shading to areas of these openings. Now, I'm the kind of girl that doesn't like to think about where shadows are coming from or light sources too much. I just like to make sure there's some light areas and dark areas in my blending, and so that's exactly what I'm doing with these various shades of the Moonlit Twilight color family. So I've done the Glacier Iris, and I brought that about 2/3 of the way into parts of these florals that I'm blending, and then I moved to the Dreamy Periwinkle, and I'm going to bring some of that into the edges of these already darkened areas. So I'm kind of gradually moving from one color to the other, using less and less of each subsequent color so that it gives it dimension, especially in a large open area like this. It's really easy for it to kind of come out flat, but by adding just a little bit of shading towards some various parts of these florals, it really is going to bring it to life. Now, once I'm done with stencil number 1, I'm going to wipe that down, and then I'm going to come in with stencil number 2. Now for this, it blends some hearts and some of the paisley pieces. For the hearts, I wanted those to be in my darkest purple color, so the Twilight Sky. Again, I'm using a mini ink blending brush to blend over concentrated areas of the stencil. And then I'm going to come in with a larger ink blending brush and the Silver Sprout ink and blend over some of those larger paisley areas. Now that Twilight Sky ink is pretty dark, so even if I get a little bit of this very, very light green into it, it shouldn't matter, but I'm just being careful that I don't blend over those hearts too much because I don't want to shift the color. Now again, building some dimension onto these images, I'm bringing in the next color, which is the Sage Stone. I absolutely love this color. Again, I'm using a mini ink blending brush. This gives me a lot of control, and I'm bringing that color about, 2/3 of the way up these paisley pieces. I'm going to finish off the shading again with the next darkest color, which is Olive Grove, and a mini ink blending brush again, just bringing that about 1/3 of the way into the blending. And this is giving all of these large open areas a lot of color transition. Now for my third and final stencil, I'm going to use the mossy granite on the stems of these florals that are inside the paisley pieces. And then I'm going to go over the entire thing with some shattered shell. Again, I'm using such a light color that even if it overlaps those areas that I've already blended, it's not really going to shift that color too much. I did want to add some shading to some areas, and so I'm grabbing ginger root and I'm filling in the centers of those florals. And again, I'm going to do just some spot blending on areas of these kind of more viney pieces to add a little shading. And then once I remove that stencil, I'm going around the edge of all of this panel again with the shattered shell to kind of soften that white. Now this stencil set also has a coordinating 3D embossing folder, and so I'm going to add more texture and dimension to this panel by lining it up inside of the embossing folder. I'm just looking through the top of the folder and lining up my stenciled areas with the portions that I can see inside of that embossing folder. Then I'm going to close the folder and run it through my die cut machine, and you can see it's got some nice 3D dimension on this panel, which brings it to life. Now, I wanted to keep these cards super simple, so I grabbed the Stylish Greetings die set and I created this Love You greeting. And I also die cut some stems. These are from the Mixed Foliage die set and blended them with some Sage Stone and Olive Grove ink. And I'm just tucking those behind my greeting that I mounted to my card front using some foam adhesive. I'll mount this entire panel onto an A2 size card base using that 1-inch wide instant dimension foam tape. And then I'm going to finish this card off by adding a few of those Sage Garden enamel dots just for a little bit of shine. And that finishes off card number 2. Both of these cards are really simple, but they really allow these brand new colors to shine. And by sticking to just these 3 brand new fresh dye ink color families, it kind of forced me to reach for colors that I might not normally reach for, and I really love the results that I got on both of these cards. The next time you're kind of lacking creativity, find a new color or a new color palette to try out and see where it leads you. I had a lot of fun experimenting with these brand new colors. Be sure to let me know in the comments below which of these 2 cards is your favorite and which of the 3 new color families is your favorite. Is it the Sage Garden, the Moonlit Twilight, or is it the Earth Tones? Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the YouTube description below, so if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Click that notification bell so you don't miss any of the videos that we share here. Thanks for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed these projects. I hope you enjoyed this look at the brand new fresh dye inks, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for joining me, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.
Wait, we have more where that came from. If you're after fabulous card making tutorials, you are definitely in the right spot. Our amazing design team create and upload fabulous video tutorials right to this YouTube channel. If you don't want to miss another amazing crafting tutorial, don't forget to subscribe and click that fun red button that you can see. Let's become paper crafting experts together.